And we will start with pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Virginia's excused tonight because her family medical appointment took much longer than she expected. So we're going to start. This is a working meeting. I do not anticipate any votes will be taken, but maybe they will. We're going to start off with the subject of foils. I've given you a double-sided sheet of paper. One is the history. I always have to look at the history before I get too anxious about going forward. And so on 5/16, the town clerk, I guess, wrote a letter to or an email to our attorney. I had asked the deputy town clerk to research the minutes of the Enfield Town Board to see what our FOIL policy was, and she dutifully did that. And as you can see, there was a motion made at the April 9th, 2008 meeting, and the top of that page is the minutes. And there is no resolution attached. And the deputy clerk says there's no way to produce that resolution. Would you agree, Alice? So, what is in the minutes? Supervisor Podofsky spoke with the FOIL office in Albany and found out that records management officials must keep a log of FOIL requests. He gave our MO town clerk, Alice Leahy, a copy of what the log entails, and she said she would get a 3-ring notebook for the pages. Town clerk has a FOIL request book. All requests are destroyed after 6 months, and that's according to the New York State law. I have requested through town clerk's office to keep all the FOIL requests. This is our deputy clerk speaking. Regarding wind farm to be placed in the historian's record because of its historical significance for the town. The procedure has been here that the town clerk has given Guy Crow and Frank Pavia copies of the FOIL before replying regarding the wind farm currently. A formal letter is written to the person with the FOIL request regarding the answer. So here's the minutes of the 2002 meeting. Adoption of uniform rules relating to the administration and public access to public records read by Town Councilperson Roach at Supervisor Owen's request. Resolution made by Councilperson Roach. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Seconded by Town Councilperson Schweitzer. Resolution attached. No resolution attached. Discussion, none. And there's the vote. It was passed unanimously. To me, I cannot produce a policy regarding this since I can't find the attached resolution. And the rest of the staff here says there's no way to find it. So my opinion is, although this was passed in '02, we realistically do not have a procedure.
I think that's probably true.
So, both the attorneys last Wednesday urged us to get a FOIL policy.
Right.
So, it is not as if we have to reinvent the wheel. Our lawyer does have copies of other FOIL policies from Central New York municipalities. My question here tonight is, we have to accept the state law on freedom of information, and if any of you are interested in the freedom of information, here's what's
That's the law.
on the site. That's your right to know. That's the open government's law. The FOIL law, the state law, I didn't download. But my question here tonight is, with what we know about the New York State FOIL law, is there anything that we want to make more restrictive in our town
More restrictive than
than the state law?
And we have the option to make them more restrictive, just to say long, still be in keeping with the.
You have to accept the minimums. I mean, one suggestion would be, I thought that 6 months, keeping a FOIL request for only 6 months seemed like kind of a short time. You can extend it to a year, you can extend it to 3 years.
Well, let me ask you just a quick question. If the state law, if we could possibly be more restrictive than the state law, where are the guidelines that says what we're allowed to do and what we aren't allowed to do? They're not in the state law, then they're somewhere else.
No, they're in the state law, they're in the FOIL law, I assume.
So, are we governed at all by federal law on this, or only by state law?
My understanding is state law.
State law, okay. So it would just be a reading of the state law. How could we be more restrictive than the state law would allow? How could we do that?
By resolution.
But then we wouldn't be in keeping with the state law anymore if we did that, wouldn't we?
What do you mean by restrictive? Does it mean we can make changes to the state law? But in terms of restriction, to restrictive means 3 months instead of 6 months versus the 9 months.
To me, restrictive would mean not meeting the minimum standards.
Well, that's what I was wondering, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I could interpret that, I interpret it, to me, that's the way I interpret that differently. But anyways, we can make changes to the.
Yes, but we can't make it more open than it is.
Right.
We can't make it more open than it is.
So,
How could we make it less open than it is? We couldn't do that,
oh. Hmm.
right? Seems like we could make it as open as we wanted to and still not be breaking the law. But if we made it less open than what the law says, then we would be breaking the law. Does that make sense?
I'd be interested in seeing the example FOIL request that guy has.
Does that seem like a good way to start?
Yeah, and seeing what the differences are, or seeing if that's acceptable.
Well, some board members did have some concerns about how public some of these pieces of paper were at what particular time. And so if you're really concerned about that, then we could talk about that.
Well, when I looked at Michael's motion, it was pretty much what Alice read last week, which seems to me that the motion was not really, what the motion said was that any conversations between the town board, Guy Crow, Frank Pavia, and the Black Oak Wind Farm would be made public. it seems to me that those conversations would be included under the FOIL law. Because Black Oak Wind Farm is,
Except personal
Isn't-
conversations between us and our lawyers, or the town's lawyers, I should say.
only, well, the way that you said it, or at least the way the motion reads, is that this is only for conversations, only for information that's flowing between and among these parties in relation to something having to do with these parties and the issues. I mean, it's not really clear, but it's not, it's already covered, in a sense. What you made a motion for was already kind of covered. The other part of your motion was that all members of the town board would be copied on all of these email conversations as well,
Yeah.
which then got rescinded with your motion getting rescinded as well. So,
So
Yeah.
back to where we were.
well, and one of the concerns that you had at that meeting when you made that original law, I think, was that there was actually a lot of stuff going on between Frank Pavia and Ann and Guy, that she's just trying to get figured out all this stuff and keep
Yeah.
it going, that we're finding out from members of the public
Yeah.
at the board meetings. And that was not really a good position to be in, that we
No,
should be
it's-
finding
So
this
I'm
information from the
curious
board.
what you were uh, hit with suddenly.
I can't remember the exact documents, but there were members of the public that had foiled documents and showing me, hey, did you see this? I'm like, no, I didn't see this. Well,
But you
there
can't-
was I can't remember which document specifically. It was one of the FOIL requests. I don't have copies of them.
Right.
But I was just sort of taken back that there were conversations, I mean, that were happening that I wasn't even aware of. And I thought that the board, maybe there's some mechanism that at least us, maybe not public at that point, because they're working on a draft document, but at least members of the board should be aware of some of those conversations.
But you can't remember.
I can't remember the specific documents. I never took copies of them.
Yeah,
I
it
don't-
had to do with, it had to do with something that Frank had written.
Yeah, I can't even remember
Yeah.
if it was something from Labella or something between Labella and I can't
But
remember.
I think the significant aspect of it is just that we don't really have a really good, clear communication policy. And I think part of that goes back to Ann and her email that she sent out this week, that if I'm gonna do these agendas and do everything so forth and so on, you know, I don't know if your job comes with specific hours, but I can certainly imagine, just from my own experience with the hours that I put in, that you must be putting in lots and lots of hours that are bringing your dollar per hour down to less than minimum wage, possibly even, you know, by the time it
I
gets all said and done.
purposefully do not keep track.
I
Because it
understand.
would be too.
It would be really frustrating, I understand, yeah.
It would be too depressing.
Yeah, I got stuck in that once too, working for salary. Sometimes working for salary is not such a great deal, but anyways, and then I'm thinking, well, if you try and copy everything that you go
That's-
through with whoever it might be out to all the board members, then that's putting another whole task on you as well, so.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, enforcing that through a motion is maybe overkill, but at least have some mechanism to keep, you know, everyone informed that maybe is less formal, but is still there in some way.
Well, maybe we can have some inclusion of this aspect of what we're talking about into the FOIL policy that we're gonna develop too, so that we could also include an understanding at least of how information is gonna flow through the supervisor, through the lawyers, through the individual for all requests, and through the town board, and at least set up a process whereby that information then is supposed to get to where it's supposed to get to, and
Yeah.
all the people that would be benefited by having the information would then at least be listed as being in the loop, and we could figure out how to do that.
Yeah, like, here's a FOIL request, and here's how I supplied the information, and just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, board members, including the supervisor, do not get notified. There is a FOIL request, don't get notified that that there is a FOIL request.
Just a matter of law, or is it just a matter of policy?
I don't know.
Or I shouldn't say policy,
know.
since you could have the
Yeah.
policy in place.
Well,
but-
and in many instances, it may not be relevant, and there may be board members, maybe even us as board members, at some point in the future, don't want to know all this stuff. But at the same
Yeah.
time, this has become a real significant issue for the town, and we do want to know as much as we can about it to try and make good choices.
Yeah, I don't think
So-
anybody was being intentfully, hiding it.
No.
I don't think that at all.
No.
I just, there's a lot of information, and I realize that there's a lot of information that the mechanics between the DOA and what
Right.
they're doing that they have to do. to
And the
get-
board
to get
doesn't have a
things done.
process to deal with this
No.
huge influx of information.
No, I just,
So you would say that a reasonable next step forward is gathering 3 FOIL policies from nearby towns,
I think that would.
5?
I don't know.
Let's ask Alice what she thinks, because I think should have a part of this process.
I think it would be best just to work with Guy Crow, and he has worked with other towns and has FOIL policies developed that he would be able to guide us.
So that's
for a FOIL
exactly,
policy.
Start there.
so 3 policies or 5 policies? Because that's where I'm getting the policies, is from Guy.
Well, we have to, since we don't have, or can't find the policy that supposedly was passed in 2002, 2008, then we have to recreate that policy.
Right, we have
And
to
so-
start
so
from
it would-
scratch.
Yes, so it'd be helpful to have examples saying, well, I like this policy, or I like the points in this policy, and then give some direction back to Guy on formulating our own policy based on what.
I'm not
goes on.
sure how they can be so different, though, if they're all having to comply with this one law.
I think Guy knows our town enough to know what would be a good policy for us to use.
Yeah, I guess, again, I kind of need to understand why, what things can vary in the policies so much.
I don't think very much.
Yeah, doesn't make a
Yeah.
lot of sense to me that it would. Unless you're gonna be less restrictive. I don't think you could be more restrictive than the law requires.
Because that's the point of FOIL, is to being open.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm not
you can be
understanding.
more open, I think, and then, again, that would be something that Guy would say, well, that's too open, you don't wanna do that, so.
Would it be reasonable to put it on the town website whenever somebody requested one?
I don't even know if it's legal to do that.
I don't
Is
think
it-
that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
If it gets foiled, is it I mean, it's.
It would be
it's-
public,
Is
but
it public at that point, it gets foiled?
Yeah.
A FOIL request, I think, is public. Yeah.
The request
be,
is,
but-
but what about the information, the filling the request, information in the request? Not only the request, but also the information is public?
Probably, but I don't know if you want to put that right out there. I don't know. I mean, you probably could if
Well,
you
on the
want to.
back of this double-sided is Guy's reply.
Which I haven't had time to read yet, or not finished reading.
That he knows of several other policies and urging us to create one.
That was handed out at the last meeting, right?
Oh, I can't remember, so I did it again. I just gave it to you.
Oh, you did.
But, well, no, this is new. No, because it's only yesterday.
I don't think I have that. You have another one?
I do.
Thanks.
So we're not even in compliance with state law in 2005 by having a procedure, a formal procedure.
We're not in compliance?
Well, I don't know. Well,
What-
we do have a
what's-
procedure, it's just give it to Guy, I guess. It's a, well,
No, well, no. The procedure is resolution made, resolution not attached.
okay.
Well, I guess this town clerk does have a FOIL request notebook, I guess.
read something?
Sure.
In executive session, we were asked to develop an SOP, standard operating procedure, for document review and dissemination, including under FOIL. This is from Guy's letter. I thus think, as I did in 2009, that the first step is to develop a compliant FOIL policy. I have attached a sample policy from a municipal form book. It is missing some items I like to see, but it isn't a bad start. I have not drafted an updated FOIL law or procedure in a couple of years, but that is what I still think you and the town need to have in place to comply with a New York State mandate at this point. Whether the town board wants me or some other committee or person to draft the same is their call. Simply stated, without the correct backbone to develop a policy upon, I think this is throwing good money after bad situation. And my advice is unequivocally to get a compliant FOIL process in place first, then turn to POL 103 and other document disclosures laws and policies. I also do not think the town or anyone should feel bad about this. It's just a problem to correct. In fact, the majority of municipalities that enacted FOIL procedures or laws in 2004 and 5 are also non-compliant, as FOIL regularly changes. The one thing that he did say also in relation to this is that the short answer is that when I advised that a compliant FOIL policy was required, I was told the issue was addressed. The simple fact is that municipalities rarely save time or money trying to have non-attorneys attend to legal work. That's akin to having your babysitter installing a new electric panel box. You might think it looks good or works good, but inevitably you will get burned. So I think he's kind of giving us a direction. A little line, he says, when I'm authorized to get something done, as you know, it gets done.
Well, given my history with this, I would say have Guy write it.
So whatever remains upon the list, I was never, he just said I wasn't authorized to proceed to do this, so.
No,
We
that's
can-
why we're talking tonight.
Yeah.
That's exactly why we're talking
Good.
tonight.
That's
I still think it's good to have, I don't know if we need 5, maybe 3 is probably
Three.
is sufficient. I mean, 3
But
is.
wouldn't
Just
we
let
ask him
Guy
to?
do it.
Why wouldn't we ask him to draft
Yeah, give us his best one.
one that's important,
Yeah.
that fits us, and then we can go over it?
Because
I think
in
we-
order to be expedient, you guys need to tell me what you're not gonna agree with
I don't know, I haven't seen the.
to save
the
time and
policy.
expense.
Yeah, well, but it's costing money if he's gonna, I mean, we don't want him spending time drafting 3 different policies. Why couldn't he just do a policy with a little bit of an overview next to it that says, you may have some options in 3A, or you may have some other options in 4B or something like that, but this is what I would recommend, and maybe you'd wanna do this or this, but, you know.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it,
I'm not wasting my typing exercise on those 3 words.
keep it simple.
Yeah,
Uh,
that would be a waste of my strokes.
For Guy,
To
Guy
tell
doesn't do
Guy-
anything simple, I don't think,
Right,
yeah, so.
right.
It won't be simple.
No,
It may
it'll be legal.
succinct
It'll be legal.
and legal, probably not simple. But legal these days is not simple really anymore, not usually.
Well, he has to write it up anyway.
Right.
Um,
But he has to go over it. Whatever we write, he's gonna have to go over it and say, this is all wrong, do it again.
He
So he might as well.
We had, pretty long conversations. He knows our intent and our concerns.
Well, I'm certainly comfortable with him suggesting a FOIL policy and procedure to us.
Does that work for you, Alice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Works for me.
Works for me.
Works for me.
Oh, I did put this in. Rules on passing local laws. I wrote to AOT where I get free legal advice. And I told them what I understood town law to be to pass a local law. You have to make a motion to have a public hearing. You have to have time for public notice, and I can't remember now all the timelines. And the full wording of the proposed local law has to be attached to this publication and made public. You have a public hearing. There is nothing in local law that says how long you have after the public hearing to pass the local law. I can't find it in that blue book. AOT didn't address it, even though I specifically asked the question.
So we could have the public hearing.
No. Your question was, how long can you take after the public hearing to pass the law?
So we could have the public hearing
Yeah.
and then not pass the law immediately.
And not pass the law immediately, yes.
So we wouldn't get ourselves in Dutch with the state for passing a law and then wanting to rescind it when the time came.
That's different than your question 2 weeks ago.
Well, that's what we were talking about though, wasn't it? That we were talking about the law to override the tax cap.
Right.
And we were gonna think about passing a law to override the tax cap. But then if we got to the end of the year and we didn't need to override the tax cap, we'd have to rescind that law, right? Isn't that what we found out from Guy?
That's not the way I'd say it. I would say that, and this is from personal experience, if you pass a budget that does not go over your tax levy, you are required to rescind the law
It doesn't go
before
over your
the
tax
end of the
cap,
year.
not your levy, but your cap, right?
No, that's a misnomer. It's
Your-
levy.
Your levy is
Well-
the money you get in that's listed by the county.
Yeah, okay.
But the tax,
If you want to use tax cap.
I'm trying to understand.
So-
is
so-
all.
It's
The
not.
tax cap is what Governor Cuomo has imposed,
Tells
right?
you, yes.
So,
Okay.
so logistically, we could set the public hearing anytime, wait till see what our budget is, and then decide.
Well, that
Then what
pretty
we do
much
next.
jams it.
We could wait till a little bit later in the year.
Yeah.
Until we've done at least some preliminary work on the budget.
Yeah.
And see, what would you prefer, Ann?
It should be passed right now, then I can we can turn our attention to passing a budget or formulating a budget. If it turns out that we pass one less than 2%, it's very easy to rescind the law. You don't have to have a public hearing for that.
No, it's just that Guy had said that the state is starting to get angry at towns for doing that and they fine them.
Oh, none of my peers have heard a thing about it, and neither is AOT.
So maybe.
I'll do a little more, but
Yeah. Well, and he wasn't.
AOT hasn't ever heard of it.
He wasn't sure.
Oh, and
about
I
it.
did not ask Guy specifically where he got that information.
Right.
Nobody else has heard it
Right.
that I talked to.
So maybe we shouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't worry about it.
Okay. Well, if you're comfortable, I'm happy to go ahead and do it.
Why can't we stay under the tax cap?
Well, you've got a highway building that I can't think of any nice way is just a total money drain. There could be a flood in August and wash out a $500,000 culvert.
The short answer in my mind is we possibly can, but it's possible that we won't also. And one of the things that happened is there are mandated expenses that do increase every year. Things like retirement expenses and insurance expenses, like insurance that we give to employees and things like that. Those things do tend to increase yearly. And inflation tends to increase costs of things yearly too. So if Buddy buys 10,000 tons of stone one year and 10,000 tons of stone the next year, it still may cost more the next year because the cost of stone's gone up. And what we're trying to do as far as the tax cap is we have to stay under the 1% over or the 2% over what we spent last year. So the idea is if our next year's budget is more than this year's budget, it has to be know much more, you know, not 2% more. And we may well be able to.
Oh, I think that this year, probably, but, you really get, it can really pinch you if you,
I think it's worth trying to do. I really think it's worth.
by
trying.
passing the law doesn't mean you purposefully do it.
Yeah. Of course, we don't get much credit when we go under.
No,
And
never.
less the year
No.
Well,
than the year before.
Given this, budget year, that was,
I'm just thinking with the size of the highway budget, there should be room to make some cuts there if we had to.
Well, we did have a meeting with the folks from the Danby Highway Department and got some ideas from them about some possibilities to do that. So I think that the highway being almost 80% of the budget last year, obviously that's the biggest place to make cuts if we can.
I saw plows with a blade down up the Van Dorn Road twice this winter. Absolutely no snow on the road. It hadn't snowed, no snow, blade down. And it's like, why?
Yeah. Well, that's certainly one part of it. There's some larger parts of it too. I mean, there's a lot to look at for budget and things. These.
I think people were upset. I think people were upset with the.
That's fitting in the snow plows when they're out plowing.
What's that?
When you see them with no snow on the ground, it's fitting the new blades in.
This is a highway
He works
employee
for the highway
speaking.
department.
Yeah.
Setting a blade in?
Fitting.
Fitting.
When you go out, you got a brand new blade, you got to fit it in.
They're just
The road.
calibrating it to the.
Fit it to the
To
road.
the
Yeah, or unless you
To the
want to
truck.
drive over it on a dirt road, you got to fit it in. Got to put a cutting edge on it.
There's a reason they do it.
yeah.
There's a reason you do it.
Yes.
You can
We
better
wouldn't go down
understand it
and just look it up.
afterwards.
So the metal wears away and
Yes, it does.
but aren't all the roads shaped differently or?
The roads are shaped differently, but not with a fresh blade, you ain't going out on a dirt road.
Well, that's what
It'll
the,
hog it right in.
There's two highway employees back there.
yeah.
I think it'd be really great. I don't know, Ann, if you're comfortable with it. I think it'd be really great if we could sit down and talk about highway budgets this year when
Yeah,
the
you
time
should learn
comes and
down
really, try and get a
Oh,
sense of
absolutely,
it. Yeah. If
absolutely.
you're interested, it'd be great to have another
Absolutely.
brain in the process.
Yeah, I want to learn about this fitting in.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Tyler?
Sounds good. We'll find out more about it.
I think people.
And
are-
I will tell you the minute we get assigned our tax cap number.
Well, I'm fine for you to go ahead and do that, as far as I'm concerned.
So then, we have talked about the decommissioning agreement before, and there's been some concerns. So I sent you some information on other wind farms, or how they do decommissioning. And, oh, here's my folder. And also, I'm quite sure that I gave you a draft of a decommissioning plan put forward by Black Oak. I think I've given this, or Marguerite has given this to you
Yeah, that's a good.
prior. And she also sent an email regarding the form of the escrow. And I'm not sure, did I share that with everyone?
Is this the resolution that says, starts with whereas the town's wind farm law requires a decommissioning bond or equivalent security?
Yes, there is also a draft a resolution. But prior to this, there has been, well, yes, there was some concern about the amount that was put in this. Concern by board members of the amount.
I think I'm not sure if I was the one that did that. I think my concern was just in how it was, just finding out more information about how it was funded.
Yeah,
And I think
I
that-
asked about that.
I think that came down to is really more of an issue for Black Oak. And that initially it'd be more expensive, but as they got the funds, they would be able to not have the funds, but they would have the exact funds in escrow. My understanding, but either way, we're covered.
Well,
Right.
some board members had concern about decommissioning would increase over the years because dollars devalue.
We did talk about that, yeah, and that's in here.
And I believe that we can establish increasing amounts as the years go by.
Yes.
Well, how would we establish them? What marker would we use to base the increase on?
Oh, there's a whole mess of information on the internet. There's quite a long page about the decommissioning estimate from the Monticello Hills project, but I don't know when it was done. And they tell you exactly how to arrive at a cost.
Well, if you tie it to some, I mean, you know, they tie the interest rates to the Fed rate. Why wouldn't we very simply tie it to some kind of a federal marker that indicates inflation amounts or whatever it might be? You know, I'm not a real economist, but
Tie the amount to
Well,
some,
costs increase over time. You know, between 1950 and now, costs have increased a certain amount of money. And if you look at the percentages that it's increased, people that do study these kind of things will be able to tell you that, okay, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, this is the typical increase in cost or in value or something. It seems like if they have markers like that that are set up, concepts that are in place that you use to tie your increases of costs of things into, then we could tie it into those markers so that at least we would know that every year it was increasing with whatever inflation might be increasing or the increase of wages or whatever it might be. Does that make sense?
Seems like a couple of markers. You can't really do it with a general
couple of markers.
like inflation, because I think they mentioned like historical or scrap value, and that can fluctuate
Right.
dramatically.
All over the
so-
map, right?
Right.
Yeah, it can be all over the map, plus
Yeah.
labor costs. Labor
Right.
costs are probably more stable over time. I would
Right,
expect,
but I don't,
the value of scrap.
it doesn't seem like we should have to reinvent the wheel on this one.
No.
I'm sure that, like Ann says, that there are places where people have done this and figured out a way to, I'm not an economist, so I don't know how to do that, but,
But I think you're right that tying it to something like scrap value or some formula of steel and copper.
well, scrap value is one thing, but then the cost to actually do the work is another thing entirely.
Fuel costs, trucking.
Well, I mean, just machines, I mean, 100 years ago or 50 years ago, guys got paid $5 an hour to run a bulldozer, and now they get paid $100 an hour to run a bulldozer, or whatever it might be, there's gotta be markers there that track those kind of things, so,
$200 just to show up.
yeah, so. And I noticed in reading this, this thing that Ann passed out last week, there are a lot of other factors that you might take into consideration as well, depending on different things.
I think
You might even find that there are different environmental laws when it comes time to take them down, and we would have to have perhaps something in there that said contingent upon any new laws being put in place that would cover the differential in cost between then and now.
Yeah, this one article was from like 2008, and they were mentioning like 100,000 per turbine, 70,000 per turbine, and just various numbers depending on what study you were looking at. And how you translate that 8 years later into a different number. Maybe 125,000 is a reasonable number now. I don't know.
Right.
We'll ponder that, whether it's a reasonable number or
Yeah,
not.
but we have the option to change it.
During the course of the project, there is opportunity to review it in the proposed resolution.
And I saw that, and Marguerite did send out an email in relation to that. My concern with that, though, is that most likely what'll happen is that once it's settled, and once we have it in place, it'll go for years and years and then be forgotten, and nobody will review it, so that the original thing would still be in place 40 years from now when it came time. And if it doesn't have some kind of a marker that ties in increasing costs, then there won't be an increased cost 40 years from now. It'll just be the town board never did increase the cost and nobody ever thought of it. So now maybe we can't take them down for $125,000 anymore. Maybe
Well,
nobody can.
That would be something you still have to review each year, because if it just languishes, you would have to change it each year and notify Black Oak or developer.
It's right. It's a whole process that you have to do every
To change
year.
the number, change the
Right.
bonding, that
Yeah.
actually requires
Right.
you to be
Right.
active on that each year.
It seems-
If you're not, then it's the town's responsibility for letting that go.
It seems like a more cohesive, larger scale process should be developed, whereby that kind of gets put in place if possible and continues in place as functional over the course of time, rather than just a one-time thing.
And as far as the concern about what if they don't have the money to renew the bond, I would double check on this, but I believe it is the bond company's responsibility to notify the holder, we're the holder, every year that it's gonna be up.
Right.
And if it isn't paid, then we cash it in.
Then we what?
Cash it in.
Cash it in?
Mhm.
Cash it in.
In other words, it hasn't been refunded, but yet the bond is still,
We demand- we
but the
demand-
bond is still in effect.
Right.
So you cash in the bond before it goes out of,
I don't know that that's what the Lynn law says we should do, though. It says,
I don't think it's that
from what I
specific.
remember reading the Lynn law, that's not the procedure. Failure to provide such additional security for undertaking within 90 days of the town's demand. This is the amount of the required decommissioning fund may be periodically reviewed by the town in its discretion and increased or decreased based upon changes over time for the actual estimated cost of removal, decommissioning, and site restoration. Failure to provide such additional security or undertaking within 90 days of the town's demand, therefore, shall subject the applicant or operator to permit revocation or other remedies set forth in this local law. I don't know that there are any other remedies that are set forth in the local law. And I think to just kind of generally say it subjects the operator to permit revocation is probably too simplistic. I doubt that there aren't legal issues involved with suddenly saying your permit is revoked, you can't do this anymore just based on the fact that they're having bond issues. I don't know, I think it's more complicated than just the simplistic way that we're looking at it right now.
I would also point to, this ties into decommissioning is at what point does a wind turbine become inoperative? It's not really specific in our wind law what that means. If you look at,
D,
section D, inoperative.
Article 6, Section 1, D.
D, I think, is it not inoperative?
Right,
Yeah.
that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Enlighten me.
I don't know, what does it mean to be non-functioning? What if it stands still,
Yeah,
well, for 12 months or whatever the time frame, and then you just turn it on for one day to keep it operative, and then it's out of commission the remaining 12 months, and you do that once a year? I mean, I don't think inoperative or not functioning, what does that mean? Does it mean it's not spinning? Does that mean it's not generating electricity? How much? What are the numbers in terms of what it means to be operative? If I generate, a few kilowatt hours a year, does that mean it's operative?
Well, how about this? The lack of function or operation of any WTG or wind energy facility may be conclusively proven by reference to reports to or from the Public Service Commission, NYSERDA,
Okay.
a New York independent system operator, or by the lack of income and/or electrical power generation. Upon request of the town or the enforcement officer, the operator or applicant shall make available to the town board all reports to and from the purchasers of energy from any individual wind tower generator necessary to prove that the WTG is functioning, which reports may be redacted as necessary to protect any proprietary information.
Okay.
So that's kind of going into it a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the level is. It's not very specific. I guess it's enough, but
Right.
probably could be a little clearer.
Yeah.
But that's not something we have to worry about right now.
okay, so we have the definition of non-functioning as determined by a third party.
Well,
Well, it's giving us the option to get.
Well,
to get
okay,
the
we have
definition,
to
yeah.
ask the third party.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's up to the board to ask the third party, but the board's the one that's got the concern, right? Because if this isn't running, we want it decommissioned. Because then it becomes an eyesore.
right.
That's the whole point of decommissioning,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, it is.
Although maybe the neighbors would rather than have it not running, perhaps. That's a whole other issue.
What if it's not running? It should be decommissioned. I mean, after a certain point, it could be they're waiting for a part. And I'm sure these parts aren't just like you go out to Walmart and get it, you get the part. It may take months
Probably
for
not.
it may take months for you to get the right part.
And it does give them room to
Yeah,
do that,
Yeah,
to say
yeah.
we're getting parts, so forth and so on.
Right? It says that in the law.
It
yeah,
does,
it
yeah.
gives a pretty good amount of time. And I suppose, Black Oak could always come to the board and say, yeah, with special circumstances, saying, yeah, we tried to get this part and we're intending to get it back up.
Right.
You know. I guess it gives us a little bit of flexibility in that.
Okay, so what I'm gathering is it would be good to tie this increase amount to some, or to a couple of national inflation markers.
Something like that, yep, I think would be a good idea.
And I think the second part of that is, how we have annual budget reviews, is to have like an annual review
Of the operation.
Of the operation, and just to check. It doesn't have to be, an intense audit. It just means you just,
As part of the decommissioning?
no, it just in terms of the town, to review that, is like we do yearly audits of the books. We do yearly audits, put that as a thing, as a to-do item, saying, oh, we have to review the decommissioning number.
The decommissioning number?
Yeah, whatever that is, whatever that's determined.
Yearly review of decommissioning?
Yes. Based on.
Numbers.
Based on whatever the metrics that we want to tie that to. That way, I mean, Mike's concern was that we could go years without updating that number, and if it goes 10 years and it costs $250,000 to decommission a turbine, and we have it set at $125,000, that's a cost that the town would have to incur. So the annual review would help.
Stating it up front, an annual
Yeah.
review
Yeah.
would help the town not forget.
Yes.
Okay, so the dollar number itself is certainly at this time, at the start, is a reasonable number. However,
What's a reasonable
There's-
number based on what information?
I don't know. Seems like a pretty large number, but I don't know.
Seems like a big number, but
Yeah.
who knows? if
it's
it-
based on what she says in the draft, and it's based
What,
on...
who says in the draft?
Well, it's a draft that you were given.
This one here?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is Black Oak's recommendation, or draft. And then there's this other info.
Yeah, I got a handout, wind decommissioning costs, and there's another company that put turbines in, and they only had 2,500 per turbine, which was gonna increase to 25,000 per turbine by the 16th year,
Well,
which was
Yeah.
inadequate.
Yeah, but we don't want to get into that place, so we
Yeah.
need to determine.
Well, if you guys can find some other hard information on how to, and this one from Vestas is pretty, I don't know when it was done.
which one is that in?
I don't know, found it on the internet.
The second one that you sent?
Vestas,
Yes.
decommissioning estimate. Canoff's analysis of cost to decommission turbines. Monticello Hills application.
There is a scrapyard right next door.
To Monticello?
I might avoid the
blades
trucking.
go?
Well, it's metal. Well, some of it's metal.
Not the blades.
Not the
Well-
blades, but the salvageable parts, the metal parts.
Well, if
Yeah.
you look
You
on the
wouldn't have to
internet,
transport it very far.
this is a hot business,
I guess so.
decommissioning.
Well, depending
Yeah.
on the value of metal, yeah.
The one-
No.
The one from
mm-mm.
Vestas is in 2011, though.
Vestas is 2011?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and that was actually, can I just say something real quick here? One thing that happens in my work, which is building the stuff, is that lots of information goes in and out and through people and all sorts of stuff. And there may be many, many versions of one set of plans or something.
right?
And the only way that I can ever track what's going on is with dates on things. And I've just been looking through a lot of this information that we have, and almost none of it actually has dates along with like
Yeah.
when the information
Yeah.
was done. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if maybe we could kind of put that into the mix somehow and try and get as much information as we can dated as it comes out, because obviously reading a report about Vestas decommissioning fund that was done in 2011 is relevant, but it may not be very
Well,
accurate
the,
anymore.
But it gives their methodology.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You can use that information to determine labor cost and maybe talk to folks and
Right. So, I mean,
Find out what we-
we could go ahead and do it ourselves, although we don't really have a lot of expertise in this area.
I was amazed to see that there's 31 tons of copper in one turbine.
Yes, we could always ask Blackout how they determined the 125,000, or how we determined it earlier. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah,
Actually, I
we
think
can
it's in-
ask
It's
that.
in our law.
Oh, they,
I actually think it's in our law that it is that way.
actually,
Maybe we
that's
should
where I
ask
got
ourselves how-
that, was
yeah.
from their draft. But they dated them.
Yeah. Given that it's in our law, we must have determined that at some point.
Huh?
Given that it's in our wind law, we must have
I,
determined that
I
at some
don't
point.
think a set number is in our wind law, is it?
Yes,
It is?
125,000.
yes.
Is in the wind law.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not sure if they went through the detailed, that they went through to determine labor and metal and hauling costs and stuff like that. They must have arrived at that number somehow.
It's in the minutes of those board meetings. Okay, so that gets us a little further on decommissioning. And feel free to email me on anything else you find.
$80 per kilowatt. So what are the size of these wind towers?
400, well, the tower itself, which is the metal piece.
What is the production?
Production, the kilowatts.
The megawatt production?
It was per turbine. I'm not sure what the yearly production.
But they're listed as something,
Yes.
they're listed as a something 107.
Yeah.
Six.
GE 2.3 or 2.
So 2.3 megawatts?
Yeah.
And how many kilowatts is that with your mathematical brain working?
Would that be times 1,000? 1,000, yeah.
Dan or Peter, you got the number in your head? The amount of production per wind turbine?
Not just the size of the turbine.
2.3 megawatts would be how many kilowatts?
Oh,
300,
that.
2,300.
2,300? So one of these, that doesn't seem likely, but, no, that's not right. No, I must have gotten the wrong number here.
They added an $80 per kilowatt and installed.
One of the numbers that the typical cost reported by GEIP was in the range of $80 per kilowatt net of the scrap value. That's $184,000 for one of these turbines based on those numbers.
Well, there's a lot of variable factors depending on
Right.
the site, the height can change and.
Right. I think there's a lot of variables there.
Basically, the best way to determine how to decommission it is see how long it takes them to put one up. Pretty much takes the same amount of time to take it down, but you don't have to buy any materials.
Mhm.
2.3 times 1,000 times 80 is 184,000.
184,000, right, yeah.
But that's a pretty rough number that.
Right, but it's also half again as much as the number that we're working with, so it's,
If I was estimating a destruction project or a decommissioning project or a construction project, you have to look at the time and materials to erect the thing. Taking one of these down, I'm assuming would take a couple of weeks. And it depends on what you're determining as decommissioning. If you're talking about taking out all the foundation.
has to, it's in the law, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big.
That's different.
Plus
big cost.
remediate all the land.
So if I was gonna come up with a cost estimate, of course, I would talk to a rigger who would be saying, okay, we're gonna be out there with a 200-ton crane for
Right.
10 days.
Right,
And that's,
X
$10,000 a day.
right.
And then we're gonna be out there with excavation equipment for 2 weeks
Right,
and blasting or whatever.
yeah.
And that's how we'll come up with it.
And then we have to take this concrete and dump it somewhere and,
And the blade.
Well, you wouldn't have to, it depends on how you determine restoration. If you want to restore it to pasture land or to cropland again, you don't have to take the whole foundation out.
down to 3 feet below grade.
You know, you just cut
Yeah.
it off and refill it, so.
Yeah,
That's what it says here in the
Yeah,
decommissioning
I mean,
plan.
so you would have to come up with an estimate on that.
But then you have to figure out what to do with the blades too.
Hmm?
Then you have to figure out what to do with the blades. That's gotta be a cost.
They melt them down and reuse them.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Well-
Yeah, but they're composite. I
They're
don't know if they
composite.
can-
That- I don't know what, that's
Yeah.
probably disposal cost.
Yeah.
It's possible that they can recycle those, I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe.
Well, so when somebody says 125,000, it's kind of like, yeah, well, what does that mean? I mean, we don't really know,
I don't
I
know.
guess is the answer. Peter?
Yeah, I just, poked around on web, and there's a study for decommissioning wind farm in Illinois. It was published January 2015, and it's criticizing an earlier analysis for underestimating the cost for full decommissioning, and it concludes that it's really $103,000 per turbine.
Is the actual cost.
Well, in this estimate,
In Illinois.
Right.
yeah, it's a 136 turbine wind farm.
Right.
So, multiply that by some $1,000, adds up pretty quickly.
Right. And of course, it does depend on how tall they
Yeah,
are. and those kind
but
of
it suggests that 125 per
things. Is
turbine
in the neighborhood.
is, reasonable. And of course, there is the inflation factor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So where do we want to go on that one?
There has to, you guys want to tie the amount, the increase, you want to have more things up front about reviewing it, and tie the amount of cost increase to a couple of national inflation markers.
Does that make sense to do
Is,
that?
is what I am gathering.
We could take like the 125,000 or whatever, well, it's by a law, it's 125,000, and then backfill that number based on those numbers. Just come up with something that comes up to 125,000 based on those indicators.
It sounds like a homework project for somebody.
Sounds good for someone who knows math.
Yeah.
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 You want to shoot for it, paper, rock, scissors?
It sounds like it's gonna be me.
Thank you.
How is it sitting with you?
That's fine, I can probably come up with the formula.
I'm really happy to have you do it because you're really good at that stuff.
Okay. So we've moved along a little bit on that, and so we're on to the road use agreement. Thank you for attending, Dan.
Yep.
Last week, we gave you all a copy of a proposed road use agreement, did we not?
I don't think so.
Last week?
No.
No,
Wasn't last week.
no.
2 weeks ago?
A while ago.
We got one, I
You
think.
got one from
I didn't,
Guy last month, I think.
right, but I didn't copy,
I brought a bunch of copies and they're all
There
in this
you-
folder still.
Yeah.
So I don't
Thank
think I
you.
gave them out.
There were,
Thank you.
There were two,
with us tonight, is, and I consider this one of the lucky things in my position. I have a physical engineer who's a resident of Enfield and into community service. I've never been so happy about having a physical engineer. That's right, physical engineer?
Hmm?
Physical engineer?
Civil engineer.
civil engineer.
Oh, you're a civil engineer, you're not PE. What's a PE?
I'm a PE, professional engineer.
Professional engineer.
Oh, you're a
I'm a
professional
professional civil
engineer.
engineer.
Yeah, okay.
PCE.
Huh?
Yeah. I've never been so happy about having a civil engineer next to me, door,
20
next
years
door
of
to
being a
me.
municipal engineer, so.
Yes, that's true.
This is something that I had drafted up over a year
No,
ago.
I
You
got
got one?
Thank you, folks.
And now, mine is 4 pages long. Guys was,
Well, let's not
no.
dwell on that.
And I believe I've, Peter, if you've seen this or not, I know I shared it with Marguerite a year ago. And this is basically a pretty straightforward agreement that we need to, that basically Black Oak, the developer, agrees that whatever improvements are needed for the road prior to construction, because the road may be too weak, they would be responsible for. And they would be responsible for any damage or degradation of the road. Section 3 is reinforcement. And the process by which we go through this is an initial inspection. And
By a professional engineer.
yeah, and there's been one report prepared already. Now the town portion of the road is a pretty small component and really is only impacted, and I'm not even sure now because I haven't looked at the maps about where the towers actually are going. But it's at the end of the line, so there's maybe 2 towers that would be, it wouldn't be getting all the traffic like the lower end of Black Oak Road, which is the county-owned portion, has. And this is the same framework of agreement that we're working with on the county.
The town roads involved are Cudaville Road, maybe, with the substation at the end of that or on it. So that would require few truck trips. The upper end of Black Oak Road, which at the most would be a mile, and Harvey Hill Road for a half a mile.
Right, and Harvey Hill, I believe, is a new one that,
Based on
Because of the change of
Right,
turbines,
right.
yes, yes.
Based on locations B and C.
Under the current plan that's
Yeah.
being reviewed.
right. I mean,
Includes
and
half
there's-
a mile of
that-
Harvey Hill.
The detail of actually where the road is and what condition is not written into this at this point. This is
No,
an appendix
no,
for
that would be the
But
appendix.
This is the structure saying that we would look at the roads, make a determination with the highway superintendent being involved in doing a lot of the, in agreement with this. And then we would make a determination. In the town, in fact, I just drove the roads this morning, just to refresh my memory. The town road's in pretty good shape.
Thank you, yeah.
The Cudaville Road, which is actually, I think in Newfield,
We share, or I don't know the.
I think pretty much that whole road's in Newfield, I believe that's.
Oh,
where their
that's
road-
right. The line is in the middle of the block, or
Well,
it's not in the middle of the road
It's not in the
for,
road, but
a lot of the
I've talked to
road.
the highway superintendent over in Newfield, and he acknowledges that's his road.
he does acknowledge
And
it.
it's an unpaved road, it's a
Right.
gravel road.
It's a twilight zone up there.
I wouldn't put it that way, it's a very pleasant area.
I'm not sure what I'm entering Newfield or.
Oh, well,
Well,
that's
the
true.
road curves,
The road
Yeah, it
curves.
does.
but
There's
the,
that
but the
short
town
line.
line is straight.
Yeah, town line, I think
Okay.
the right at Black Oak, there's a portion of it that's coincident with the town line, but
Yes,
as it goes back up through.
yes.
So what did, Guy had a pages.
Okay, what
long-
Guy wrote-
What was he adding to that?
No,
Wasn't
no,
it that it's
wait,
inherent?
no, we're not doing that part yet. We'll do that part later.
Okay. The process is included in his. The engineering process, he detailed a lot more types of roads and things, basically.
Right.
Basically, you don't have to do that for this because the town basically has one type of road. It's a fairly
The stone.
low-end road.
We
It's-
think, but we're not sure, it's a class 2, but
It's.
none of
it's-
us in the room are sure.
I haven't completed an inventory totally up there, but it is only it's a marginally paved road, okay? So it's a road that's
Oh, it
been
might be
developed over
class
the
3.
years and it's had some pavement put onto it and then basically surface treated a number of times.
Treated stone and oil.
Yep. So what looks like asphalt may be multiple layers of stone and oil.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like our road.
And the town has been maintaining that road and keeping it in fairly good condition. So we'll do the pre-inspection. We'll make a determination of what the impact of the loading will be on that road, and we'll have to, if we decide which sites are being used, it's impacting how much traffic is gonna be on that part of the road.
And then the construction is done.
Done, and you go back and you look at the road again.
The professional engineer goes back and looks at the road again and makes a determination of
How much damage has been caused?
how much damage, relays that, the suggested agreement is, relays that to the developer, and the developer brings it back up to standard.
Right.
Or
Actually-
to where it was
where it
when it
was
started.
before.
But it's,
They're not required to bring it up to a higher standard.
who actually does the work, the town or the
That's-
contractor?
No, this is the project would have it done.
Would have it done, so they contract that out.
They would
But
contract it out.
They could.
They're
ask the town to do it too.
gonna have, the nature of their project, they will have a contractor that is building roads, because they have
Yes.
all the access roads to build.
Yeah.
So it's logical to have them do all the work, but you would hold a bond to ensure that they did do the work.
Yeah.
If they did not complete the work properly, then. you
Which
would
is
have
not
to
in this
do it.
agreement.
Hmm?
Which is not in this
I
agreement.
believe it's in it. It's in yours, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, I thought,
I didn't see a bond anywhere.
But the town can inspect that.
right.
Operating, maintaining, and
Up to-
decommissioning the project.
There would. I'll have to put- In this first section, access and improvement, the company shall file with the town a performance bond in an adequate amount before commencement of construction.
Which page is that?
Front
Right in the first
page in bold.
Section 1, paragraph 1.
First paragraph?
Well, first numbered paragraph down at the bottom says access and improvement.
It's in bold.
It's, yeah.
And when does it say that bond will be,
Before
That bond will be
permitted.
held until the road
Oh,
is returned to the adequate condition as determined by the highway superintendent.
right? But what it doesn't cover is damage to the road during decommissioning.
True. But that could be part of the decommissioning too.
That's what I was just thinking, that
Right. I
as
mean,
well
this
as.
is a road use agreement for,
Right.
for the project. You
Right.
can, basically, what I would recommend, okay. In subparagraph 5 on the third page, in the event the operating, maintaining, or decommissioning of the project requires use by the company of oversized or overweight vehicles, inspect the roads, basically they have to do the project and get a permit to work on those roads again.
Right.
And that this agreement would be reinstated,
Oh.
including a performance bond. But I would recommend that covering the cost
also-
of the roads be included in any
in the
bond that you have for the
decommissioning.
decommissioning process.
That's what I was thinking, it
Right.
should just be part of the decommissioning plan.
Right. So if, for example, if on the town roads, it's gonna cost $50,000 for the short portion of the town's road,
Right,
we should include, a $50,000 component
right,
for the protecting of the
exactly,
road
yeah, that makes sense.
during
Yeah,
decommissioning.
I think that's a good idea.
I have one question.
Yes.
What are collection lines?
Collection lines are the electric power lines.
Oh, Oh, oh,
that run from the turbines up to the
Oh.
substation.
And
Okay.
Exhibit B, Dan?
Exhibit B.
I don't think we have that.
You don't have
no,
that.
you don't have it because it's not created yet.
Right.
Okay.
Because it can't be created until just before or just after, depending on which one it is.
Right, and most of the collection lines are not in the road right-of-ways, at least not in the town road right-of-ways.
Yeah, right. Oh, I,
But I haven't seen the final construction plans yet, so I can't
right.
tell you exactly where they are.
Under repair and reconstruction, number 4, the second paragraph, a second inspection shall be done 12 months after the certificate of completion.
Right.
To see whether it was adequate? The repair was adequate? I mean, it seems like a long time.
Well, very often, if you've reconstructed a road because you've totally destroyed it and you rebuilt it, there's usually a 1-year warranty on the work,
Oh,
just
Oh.
because
oh,
there could be settlement depending on how the construction was, but that's a good clause to maintain. And we've used
you
this
do,
basic
oh,
form of
okay.
agreement in a number of different
Okay.
wind farms.
So you're saying it may not be evident as soon as they get done doing the
As
work.
soon
that
as-
there are
Right.
Okay.
I mean, the main thing there is, there can be, if there's some subsurface damage that you
Yeah.
don't see, the pavement looks all right,
At
but
first.
the subgrade has been
Yeah.
impacted, it will show up
Perhaps, yes.
with it after a freeze-thaw cycle.
If anybody who has a driveway,
Right.
knows that.
Can I ask about one thing that I'm not really sure of? Number 6 on page 3. The company may install collection lines in town roads as follows. Location of the proposed lines are depicted on the map, Exhibit B. They'll be in accordance with the requirements of the town superintendent of highways. Final locations of the collection lines will be provided to the town in a map. And then the last sentence is, the town agrees to enter into any additional agreements as necessary to permit the company to install the project components. So I'm not sure why we would pre-agree to enter into any agreement, no matter what agreement it was, ahead of time.
Well,
I say it's the language you're getting caught up on.
Yeah, I definitely.
basically what this is, it's like a culvert permit that the town superintendent pretty much issues whenever there's construction or curb cut. That's what that, we can change that language if you want to, and specifically,
The way it reads, it says you're automatically agreeing to whatever the agreement is.
basically, yeah, the town is saying that we're gonna give you a road work permit if something changes and you relocate something during the construction process, we'll review that with you and modify the permit.
If you move
A
the
component.
roadway, so you have to move the culvert that's in the
Right.
town right of way.
Would it be against the point of what you're writing here to just change the word enter to consider? Enter into to consider?
Yes, that would be fine.
Any additional agreements?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know what other agreements would
Right,
be involved on
right.
that.
Yeah, and.
So you want this to read, the town agrees to consider
Yep, that would be fine.
entering into any additional agreements.
No, to consider any additional, well, you could put entering into, yes, that's, entering into would be fine, yep, sorry.
And again, this agreement, I have reviewed this one specifically with Guy. This was reviewed by other town attorneys and the basic format of it, so.
Doesn't meet Guy's standards.
I know.
But I'll get into that right now if you want.
Well, do we have to ask Guy?
Yeah, if this is.
I've already asked Guy.
Is it-
I can tell you.
is this-
I can tell you.
Is this okay with Guy?
No.
Just one guy wrote up?
Yeah.
Would he?
Do you wanna
wants-
listen?
He wants his version of it.
This, I like Dan's agreement. I understand it.
Yes.
Our lawyer says that it does not have the proper basis in which to be enforced.
But well, the processes you are going through currently in issuing a permit or considering the issuance of a permit to construct a wind farm gives you the basis for enforcement.
Well,
Because
this is
one of the
the
findings-
least
one
of
of the
my
fin-
problems is working this out. And your bigger problem is, have you discussed this with Buddy?
I've been trying to get hold of him and I have gone through this one, the original one I did in 2015, I went through
You
it with
did
him.
go through that with him.
Yeah.
And what was his response?
He seemed to think it would be a good process.
Okay.
But I'm gonna try to
But-
catch up with him
all
again
right.
tomorrow. I tried to catch
All
up
right,
this morning.
because
but I
that
missed
is
it.
one of the big cruxes of
Yeah.
this.
The highway superintendent needs to be intimately involved with the
Yes.
project because they are his roads.
Yes.
Is there anything in here that isn't in Guy's and that, I mean, is there any?
The actual mechanics are not in Guys.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
The actual mechanics are, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be
The
this.
guy took a road use law that I think I was involved in developing because the language sounds awful familiar from another town.
I wouldn't discount that.
And it's basically, the road classifications and things like that are all spelled out in his document.
Right.
But
We don't have
this,
only
this
one
is,
of them.
this is based on, you might be using every road in the town.
Right.
For
Yeah.
this particular project, you've got very finite limits
Right.
of roads that are gonna be used.
Right.
And we'll define that in.
Do you feel like that's the only difference between yours and Guy's?
That's, I believe.
They
Yeah.
have to get to the
I mean,
site
then
for all
he
the-
put in, forms and things like that.
Okay.
the-
And the violations are breach, that's probably a little bit stronger. Basically, if you don't do what you want, the highway superintendent, if he's unhappy with the maintenance of the road, you can shut the project down until they fix the road. This-
During construction.
Right, if they don't do the maintenance that they're supposed to do.
But that's in both of them.
Yeah, it's, I said it, I think, in a 3 lines.
Kinder, gentler way.
Do you feel like it would be too onerous a procedure to try and meld the significant parts of Guy's into your agreement so that he would be
I
happy
mean,
with it?
however you want to write if you want Guy to write the agreement, that's fine with me.
I like yours. I like the simplicity of it. I like the clarity of it.
I mean-
I do understand what Guy is saying though, because he thinks lawyerese and he's just trying to do his job.
Right. I mean, he's got a big indemnity and waivers clause in there, which
Right.
probably doesn't have to be that long, but I'm sure it protects the town
Right.
very thoroughly.
And that would be my concern, would just be to make sure that he feels like the town is covered as well.
Given the brevity of yours, wouldn't it be easier to incorporate yours into his?
Well, basically,
Maybe
my stuff's
Well,
interspersed in through
that's
his.
the way it's gonna be. Because I'm not presenting anything that Guy doesn't agree with.
So do you have a plan then for you for going ahead? Do we need any
Mhm.
input?
The crux of the matter is there anything additional the board wants in Dan's? And the sign off by the highway superintendent.
And to me, the only thing I would want to include in Dan's is just whatever Guy feels we really need to have to be covered
Yeah.
legally.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of insurance requirements, which is not a bad thing to have.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
I mean, they're essentially doing the same thing.
Right, and,
Yes.
and actually, once you issue, the road is a small part of the project.
Yeah. Our section of the road.
I mean, even the county section of the road.
Yeah, right.
You're talking a multi-million-dollar project, and you're talking about a couple $1 million for road work.
Does the state need that? Because there are state roads that lead up.
Well,
State
that's their
roads,
problem.
You don't need an agreement to run on state roads,
That's their problem.
because state roads are intended to
Oh,
provide.
for everything.
I mean, as long as you stay within the legal weight limits and their overweight vehicle permitting, they do have to get overweight permits.
And 79,
Okay, where the state would get involved in, there's that intersection with Black Oak is too,
Right,
is sharp.
right.
There's not enough turning room there to bring the big equipment in.
yeah.
And so there would be a highway work permit required by the state and Tompkins County at that intersection to approve that intersection during
accommodate
the
the-
construction process.
Hauling.
Right.
But then it'll be taken out. It'll be returned to,
The additional show,
Much-
some of
much
it may
of-
be partially taken out, but
Well,
some of it
right.
may, if
Much
it
as
can
it
improve
is.
safety, I
We're,
mean,
we're assuming everyone's coming up from 79 to Black Oak.
Yes.
But they're not coming from Newfield. You know, if they're coming up.
no, that's an 8-ton limit on that, on Cudaville Road right now.
I just wanna, yeah, I
That
figured.
would be fun to watch.
Yeah, I can imagine taking some of those corners out there, but
there-
that's just a question I have to ask. I just wanna make sure that that is.
There is an issue because that road is being illegally used frequently right
yeah,
now.
Okay.
yeah.
Because a lot of people are bringing heavy trucks in
Yeah.
with scrap metal.
Which is another thing this board needs to do is have a road use law, right? Isn't that what
The road use law
it's?
would be, that's,
Yeah, that's-
you know, this bigger document, the road use law saying that basically to
This
protect your road,
board
you weight limit
should-
the road.
This board should
You put weight
really
limits.
be putting our attention to that. huh?
So
Yeah.
what that would mean would be weight limits on the town roads,
right.
right?
Well, that's the visible thing that happens.
And if they go over that weight limit, then they have to get a special permit. It's kind of.
Yeah, we have enforcement rules,
Yeah.
if you pass a law. Right now, we have no enforcement rules.
Okay.
And there's, well, once you have the law, getting it enforced is hard.
Well, yeah, but without a law, you can't do nothing.
Right.
Who's gonna be
I mean,
out there
you can
watching all
still,
the
you can
trucks?
still weight limit your roads if there's a reason to do that, and you can do an individual study on that, so.
Yeah,
But the weight limit doesn't have overweight vehicles from going to a property on that road. You can't,
well, there's still delivery exceptions.
right. If the destination is on that road,
Right.
and they have to go on that road to get to their destination.
The milk trucks are accepted.
Right,
They are an exception to the rule.
but since the scrap yard is also on that road and that is the destination,
The problem we're gonna have is if you cut off the Connecticut Hill Road, I think, then our trucks would have to go all the way down through 79, all the way through Ithaca, back to Alpine. That'd be our only way.
But that's, you know, those are considerations
yeah.
that you have to have. I mean,
I saw one thing in Guy's agreement that I thought was a little strange. Under number 4, about halfway down, it says, if the road becomes dangerous to the traveling public, the town shall close the road to all construction traffic. So who
That's what he
decides,
just said.
who decides what's dangerous?
The highway superintendent.
I mean, basically, if you've got ruts deeper than an inch on a dirt road, maybe, if you've got asphalt breaking up and causing potholes, so you can't travel on that road safely at a reasonable speed.
It's a big judgment call, really.
Hmm?
It's a big judgment call. Really.
It's a judgment call, but it's usually, you just have to monitor it. I mean, dust control is a big issue a lot of times. And I don't think it's gonna be such an issue on the town road because I don't think it's gonna be impacted that badly, but on the county part of the road, it's gonna break up pretty bad
Oh, yeah.
from the beginning.
We don't have any places like on Rutherford where they have that one culvert that needs to be repaired.
What?
I don't believe in the town portion there's any, when I talked to Buddy before, he didn't know of any inherent weaknesses because he's been maintaining them pretty well.
I know Buddy's been concerned about that one
On Rothernick?
Yeah,
Well, we're not gonna let trucks go down Rothernick.
Yeah.
No,
That wouldn't be a hell of an
no.
idea.
I was just wondering if there's anything like that we have to be concerned about.
Oh, well,
On-
I
on-
assume he would have shared it.
Yeah, on this particular road, when I surveyed it, I didn't see anything. I think there were a couple culverts on the county road they were concerned about, but I think they actually have gone in and replaced some of those culverts in the past 2 years.
Okay.
So you will get, you're gonna keep trying to
I'll get
get
hold of
currently
Buddy.
with,
Yeah.
with Buddy. Okay, and then get back to me.
Yep.
And I can put this into a document to present to the board for voting. So we've pretty well exhausted that.
We good to know?
Meeting with Labella. All the comments have been received by Black Oak's technical people and our technical people. They have been cross-checked. The town clerk agrees that all the comments received during the public period have been noted. Did I give you a copy?
I don't think so.
Oh, I guess I only took a copy.
There was a copy that Kathy shared with us. There was a link
Right,
that Kathy shared with us.
on your
where you download
email,
comments, yeah.
there's a thing to download in Dropbox, and I finally convinced myself to go back home and find my password, and I did go on Dropbox, and it's all on Dropbox,
Yeah, if you do it, Kathy sent around a link
a link.
today that.
You still have to have your password.
You still have to have a Dropbox account.
I got in there without a password. for
No,
some
you don't. I
reason.
never had an account I can open up
Yeah.
with that.
It asked for a password, and I just ignored it, and it
Oh,
opened
yeah, you can
anyway.
open it, but if you want to download it, actually, I'm
No,
not
I
sure. I
don't.
can't remember. Anyways, I have a Dropbox.
Well,
account, so I
anyway.
don't have an issue.
Alice says she sent us all the copies. My understanding is that as part of this finalization of the environmental impact statement that Black Oak's technical people address these comments. And then our technical people address these comments. Do you want to meet with Labella regarding the comments on the public comments?
I would say yes.
Well, I got lost a little there. You say your understanding is that Black Oak will address the comments, and then that Labella would address the comments. Those are two separate processes.
Oh, I think, no, I do not think they're separate. I
Okay.
think there's some going back and forth.
Okay, so there is an interface between Black Oak's response to the comments and Labella's response to the comments.
That's my
Is there-
understanding.
Okay, an interface there. So, where would we step into the process if we were gonna be a part of it?
Well, we have to be a part of it because we're the ones.
Where? That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah,
That's exactly the question I'm asking you.
right.
Do you want to meet with Labella regarding the comments during the
Um,
public period?
Well, I think the simple answer to that is yes, but then you have about 6 more questions that come on top of that one.
I'm here.
And the first one is, what's the process that happens in terms of the interface between Black Oak's responses to the comments, Labella's responses to the comments, and our connection to what we might want to respond to the comments as well? Is this a 3-way connection? Is it a?
No,
We need
it's a
to find
two-way
out more
connection.
about it. To me, I would need to find out more about it in order to know where to fit into the
What else
process.
do you want to know about it?
Well, it'd be nice to talk to the lady who's gonna be doing it.
That's exactly my question.
Which is-
I don't want to prevent that communication back and forth, because I assume that there may be some back and forth. But I think that as a town board, we need to review whatever the result of that is.
Yes.
So
Well, then-
I think it would be helpful after some of that has taken place to review and ask Kathy, what's this,
That's when you would talk to Kathy.
Well, let me ask, is the communication between Labella and Black Oak already in process?
I didn't get a hold of Kathy today because my time got away and it was 5:20 and it wasn't 4:20.
So what is the expectation of, conceptually, what kind of response would we be expecting Labella to make to both the comments from the people?
What, dear?
I think
I cannot answer that question.
I'm assuming that they're gonna take care of the back and forth. They're gonna be the back and forth communication between Labella and Black Oak in terms of coming up with comments, but before we sign off on it, or well before we sign off on it, we need to be part of that process, understanding what's going into the final document, so we can review and ask questions ourselves too.
I would want to talk to Kathy right away to understand what the process is personally.
That might be helpful to understand what their process, how they're going about this.
Right, exactly.
Speaking of timing, the seeker guidelines have 45 days from the end of the public comment period, which was April 12th, for the town to have a final EIS for the next step, and that is next Friday, May 27th. So, unless we're planning to have a finished document, we'll need to extend that time period, which we're allowed to do.
And that takes a motion and a resolution, or?
Well, I'm not gonna off the cuff it, so. That's.
Well, certainly, it wouldn't take
Well, a
law.
motion and a resolution have the same effect.
Right, but it's not a law, we don't have to pass a law.
No, it is not a law.
Okay.
We may wanna have a quick special meeting like next week, properly posted, and to give maybe Guy enough time to come up with, or us,
Frank.
a short extension. I'm not gonna say it tonight.
You're not gonna do it tonight?
I'm not gonna do it tonight.
Do you have something to add?
Well, I think Mr. Miles is thinking the end of the comment period, April 12th, was actually the last public hearing, but the
Yeah.
comment period was
Oh.
extended till April 22nd.
Oh, I'm thinking, was it the last comment period or the last public hearing? I think it was the last public hearing. I probably misspoke on that.
So is it still 45 days from the 22nd?
I think it's 45. I think it's 45 days from the public hearing.
Not the end of the comment period?
I believe so. I can check on that, but it's coming up regardless.
That's right, it's coming up. I was hoping it would go over to the next regular board meeting.
I don't think it is.
Okay. All right.
I'm pretty sure it's a hearing though. No.
45 days.
So the question is, what kind of statement do we need to make in order to extend that time?
No, we're getting Frank to make a resolution on that.
Yeah.
But thanks for that reminder.
Yeah.
We're back to meeting with Labella.
Well, for me,
Yeah.
I think it'd be great to talk to Kathy. Like, as soon as the process begins, which I assume it already is, and trying to understand what their
So in terms of
steps
the
are.
next meeting, 2 weeks from now, I know Kathy's not going to want to meet before 2 weeks.
I'm sure she's really busy. And,
Does that take us, that does not take us to the next board meeting, I don't believe.
Take us to 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Well, 2 weeks would be June 1st.
Yeah.
And the next board meeting would be June 8th, so.
June 8th.
The next regular board meeting is in 3 weeks.
And then we get in with the planning board problem. Is anybody taking an extended Memorial Day weekend?
I have a daughter that's graduating, so I'll be.
You'll be extended
I will be extended, yes.
until Tuesday, until after Tuesday?
I'll be back on Tuesday.
You'll be back by Tuesday. What about aiming, after I check with,
Well,
that would be May 31st.
yeah, that may be a difficult day to do that Tuesday.
That might be the day you come back.
Another personal thing I have to do that day, but
What about June 2?
what day is that? Oh,
Ought to be Thursday.
yeah, that seems fine, I think.
What is it we actually are doing with Kathy?
We're talking with Kathy on something that's written down on paper.
On something that's written down on paper?
Mhm.
I don't get what you mean by that. What? On what that's written down on paper?
Comments.
Right. We're gonna talk with her about comments.
Mhm.
Um,
That are written down on paper.
Right. I was under the impression that we wanted to have a part of the process. Are we having a part of the process as a board in board meetings? Or are we doing it?
This is the process.
Which is the process? What is?
What I just explained. You
You
take a
are-
piece of paper
Right,
that has writing on it,
right,
and it's about the comment period. That's where we are now in finalizing.
right.
And their technical people have given responses to the comments.
Right.
Our technical people have given responses to the comments. It's written down on paper.
I mean, that will
You
happen.
get it.
It does
You
happen.
get it a couple of days before. It's not gonna be 3 weeks because they haven't done it yet. And you get to review it, and do you like it? Do you disagree? Just like this piece of paper I gave you from Dan, or Dan gave you.
I think
And I don't agree with this, I want this out, I want a different answer. I don't know what you're gonna say
I think-
about what's written down on paper.
I think Mike's concern was just touching base with her about the process.
We are having,
Yeah.
when we pay money and have her come down from Rochester,
Yeah.
we're doing something
Yeah.
Substantial.
Yeah, I don't want to waste, from my perspective, I don't want to waste too much of her time because she's busy and without having something to actually have a discussion back and forth about what those comments, what the responses are.
There are thousands of pages of information
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was submitted.
yeah.
So how do you propose we're going to deal with that thousands of pages of
A
information?
lot of hours sitting here.
In
That's
the
how.
board meeting? That's what I'm asking you, in a board meeting.
Of course.
Okay, then I think we should have a board meeting next week and start doing it, because we got
I
hours and
don't
hours to
think
do it.
she'll be agreeable. I think the best I can do is get her to agree to come down in about 2 weeks.
Well, what about looking at Black Oak's responses then, while we're at the board meeting?
I'm not sure if that even.
Without Kathy coming?
Yeah. I mean, we're the ones who are saying this is okay or it's not okay. It's not Labella that's saying it. Labella's just helping us.
LaBella knows the rules, and quite frankly, we do not know the rules. I'll be quite candid about that.
Hey, you may not know the rules. I know a lot of the rules. I understand a lot of what's in these documents, and I understand when somebody is trying to pull the wool out of my eyes and saying this is true when something else says it isn't true, and vice versa. I could read a lot of information and it might all be perfectly fine and true and fine, but it might not be. And I'm gonna have a pretty good understanding of what's valid and what isn't in my own mind. I mean, don't you expect that at some point we are going to respond to Black Oak's responses to these comments? I thought that was what you were saying. Are we only going to respond to Labella's responses to Black Oak's responses to the comments?
I think that's probably more how the process is supposed to go. That'd be my thought.
When you say supposed to go, what does that mean? Who makes that supposed to?
This is not the first seeker that has been done
No,
in.
it isn't.
It is the first one that I've been intimately involved in. Our technical person has been involved in lots of others. And I do believe that you know, they're not licensed professional engineers, but there is, well, they are licensed professional engineers. There are regulations that are done in these sort of things that I don't think I know about, and that's why we have hired a professional engineering company.
I understand, but this is my job. This is my job to do, and I want to do it.
I do not think that I'll try tomorrow to get her to come down in a week.
I'm saying maybe Kathy can't come, but maybe we can start somewhere. You know, if we have these hours and hours to go, and we have these 45-day windows, or whatever we decide to be in extending the windows to, then we need to get to it.
I think it'd be hard to have discussions without having the comments and the response to the comments. So we have.
Well, we don't know anything right now. We
No.
don't know if Black Oak has made any responses. We don't know if Labella has developed any responses. We don't know anything. So what we're saying we're gonna do is sit another 2 weeks and then wait to ask Kathy a question about this. I mean, I would assume that Black Oak would be more interested in getting us going quicker than that. Maybe not. Maybe we can just do this kind of as we go along, but it seems like there's a timely issue that's going on here. And maybe nobody's ready. It could be, if nobody's ready, that's fine. But then let's make the extension 120-day or a 150-day extension, so we have time to do all this thing. Because we may need that much time to look at the thousands of pages of comments, look at Black Oak's responses, look at Labella's responses to Black Oak's responses, and then have our input into the whole thing and get all the way back to Black Oak again and start all over again. That could take months and months and months to do.
Yeah, I think, I don't think that she's gonna be done in 2 weeks.
No, I do not
and-
think she's
and-
going to be done.
And having her come in 2 weeks, at least, have a conversation with her in 2 weeks, we can at least know where she is and ask questions. Or
There would be something,
There'd be something that
Right.
we can discuss.
I would think.
But then let's work on making a 180-day extension to this process,
Well, that's separate.
so we have 6 months to deal with this issue.
That's separate.
Yeah,
Well, it's
That's a
not
separate issue.
It's not a separate issue because we have to decide right away
Um,
on how long we have to make our response. This is
We-
part of the whole issue. It's it.
we can continue to make extensions.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did look it up on the DEC, and it's the prepare FEIS. That's if you have a secret hearing. It's 45 days after close of hearing, which was on April 12th. And that would
So it
be-
is close of hearing, not
Look-
close of comment period.
Yes, close of hearing, so April 12th, that means that we have to prepare the FEIS by next Friday, which is the 27th, unless we extend it.
Okay,
So we're
so
gonna-
there is another meeting
There is another meeting.
next Wednesday
There is another meeting, yes.
with a vote.
Yes.
Okay. So next Wednesday is May
25th.
25. And I'll see what Kathy says about coming down May 25 because we're having a special meeting about some other items.
And I think if we're going to develop an extension resolution with the lawyer's help, I think we should put plenty of time in it to give us time to do this. If we're not going to do it in a timely manner right now and get to it, and we're going to do it over a long drawn-out period, which is fine if we need to, then.
We should have enough time, extended enough time, but I don't know, is 180 days too much, or is it too?
I don't know. I mean, that's why
I would think one would defer to someone who's had a little more
Exactly
experience.
the point I was making. Why wouldn't we talk to Kathy sooner rather than later and find out how long this is likely to take?
We can extend it like 90 days, or 45 more days, or 60 days. It doesn't prevent us from extending it further from that.
Exactly, exactly.
We'll know more information in 2 months or from now to determine how much longer we may need. because we may be at this point 2 months from now or 3 months from now.
I just want to make sure we give us enough time that we don't just keep feeling like we're under the gun every minute that we're working.
I think
You are under the gun every minute.
We
Well, then let's
I'll
make it
get-
longer.
we do have to get it done in a reasonable time period, so
Yeah,
we do have to
yeah.
have extra meetings.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have to be under the gun, like we have to, like if we make an extension for 60 days, that
Right.
doesn't mean we have to get it done in
Right.
60 days. If we've been, working really hard and we can show
At
that we've been
50
having regular
days, you
meetings.
make another 30-day
Yeah.
extension.
Say it's not enough time. We need
Because
more
what
time.
happens with human beings is, if you say 180 days at the first, then, oh, well, I got this 6 months, I got 6 months. I feel it's a bad,
This is a complicated process, there's a lot of comments,
bad,
and we
way
don't
to
really
do
know
it.
how long it's gonna take.
It's going to take a while.
It may take 180 days, but.
And when you're talking about comments, are you talking about the public comments?
yes.
Yes,
That's what we're talking about.
yes.
Right now, that's what we're talking about. That's what's, the attention is turned to in the first of this thing, is the public comments.
Yes.
That's what our technical advisors have told me.
And you mentioned something about voting next week. What was that on?
We're voting on extending the time limit on the completing the final environmental impact statement.
Final supplemental environmental impact.
Yep.
Yeah, according to the guidelines, we, to prepare the FEIS, we have 45 days after close the hearing, and that's next Friday, so we're obviously not gonna have it done next Friday, so we have to extend it.
And how much bearing do you think that the public comments are going to have on this?
Good
Depends on the
amount.
comment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think there.
Well, then it ought to go rather speedily.
I think there are some that are just, I think it depends on the comment. I think there are some that are just general support, and they say, okay, yes, I, see the support, and say, acknowledge that, yes. Some may have, somebody more substantial, and have questions that need to be answered, and we may have to rely on Labella to help us answer some of those questions.
And Labella is who? I'm sorry.
They are a technical firm, engineering firm, that works for the town, that represent us to help us do this process.
And they have a section of their engineering company that's handled a lot of environmental impact statements on a variety of subjects, but it does include a variety of wind farms that they have worked on the environmental impact statement.
Just briefly, I've been, kind of out of the loop of this whole thing because I've been away all winter, caring for a family member who has cancer. And, before I left, the proposed sites were completely different.
And it was finalized.
What's that?
And it was finalized.
That was finalized? But at any rate, I came back just a couple of weeks ago, and I've heard that actually, I'm a property owner up on Harvey Hill Road, 235 Harvey Hill Road, the big Victorian place, and they're going up.
The mansion.
Yeah, they're going up right.
It's called the mansion.
Yeah, they're going up right in my basic backyard. And I'm really, very concerned about it,
Mhm.
very.
I believe you've expressed that.
Good, you got the letter then.
Yes.
Oh,
Public
yes.
comment.
Yes.
One of the
All right, so
studio.
Now
everybody's
that-
read the letters. Is that
Well,
correct?
not 100% of them.
Yeah, okay.
You're the one with the studio, right?
That's right.
Yes, okay, I did read that one.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, good.
I got that far.
Because my livelihood is wrapped up in my property
Yeah.
very big time. And, I'm really, really very concerned about this and
Yes, I
disturbed
understand that.
about it. And I'm also kind of disturbed that it comes down to 5 people on the board when no one from the board, as far as I know, will be directly affected as a property owner, like I would be. And where is my vote in this? Where is my,
It was last November.
It was I wasn't here last November, and I wasn't notified about this. No one notified me the entire winter. about anything that was going on. I came back and this was happening. You know, and I'm extremely upset about it. So, you know,
Brad has a question.
Yes, I just had a question on those comments from the public and such. All intelligent and relevant questions that were raised in the public comments, are they all to be answered? Nothing to be
I don't know that,
segregated through?
I don't know that much about the process. I believe they're lumped by some subject matter, but I am really not sure, because I haven't intimately gone through this process prior to this.
I think that's difficult.
Sometimes a very
question.
straightforward, simple question requires an accurate, truthful answer.
Some-
And it'll be very easy if they look at my question.
Reading a few of the public comments, some of them just aren't questions, some of them are just more statements saying, you know, in support or not support of them. They're not really, some of them just don't have questions in them.
I know I originally went into this very neutral because I wanted to understand, and then I started to do an analysis of both sides to weigh what was accurate, what wasn't. Then I finally, that became a bit overwhelming, and then I decided, well, let's step back and just look at this, the big picture. And then it became very clear. Why? It has no measurable contribution and purpose. This project, so why is this project so important to happen when it has no measurable contribution and purpose? That's my question. I'd like to see a good
yeah,
answer to
good
that.
answer, good question.
Yeah.
'Cause it seems like the downsides are much more than any sort of
Well,
upside.
you know,
Okay, we're going to have public comment
I just-
at the next regular board meeting.
I'm sorry, I just have one question or comment that goes to this 180 days. And the argument back and forth about, well, maybe we need to make it 30 or 45 or whatever. If it's all gonna happen, all this stuff's gonna be reviewed by you folks, town board. If you go 2 years, it doesn't matter because it's when you guys are finished. And you're saying, well, you know, we got 6 years to do this or 6 months to do this. If that's what your meeting is about, to review your comments, you do it until you're finished.
Thank you.
Instead of continuing to
Thank you.
extend.
Thank you. What time do you want the special meeting next week? 6:30 or 7?
Well, Henry and I always get here at 6:30. So maybe we should-
I can do 6 a.m., maybe a couple minutes late, depending on the bus
6:30?
schedule. Yeah,
Okay,
I may be here at 6:35, but I'll be here.
okay.
We'll just sing a little bit till you get here.
So,
Okay.
Is that May 25th?
They told me on their calendar was May 25th.
May 25th, yes.
I'll have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Road use agreement, road use agreement. Road use agreement. Okay.